settle into comfort and let your body sink into whatever supports you. The world beyond can wait, and for now, we turn together toward a journey that is not of this earth, and yet one that has always rested quietly in the imagination of humankind. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It is always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background, and let us ease into tonight's journey together. Tonight, we will drift back to a time before time, to a world shaped not by the familiar gods of Olympus, Zeus, Athena, Apollo, but by the older beings who came before them. These were the Titans, ancient and immense. They are less well known today, but they carried the weight of creation on their broad shoulders. Their story is vast, slow, and cyclical, stretching from chaos to order, from power to downfall, and from obscurity into myth. This will not be a tale told in haste. Instead, we will wander carefully, step by step, through the landscapes of myth. You may find yourself imagining mountains higher than thought can reach, seas rolling endlessly without human ships, and skies unbroken by the voices of prayer. It was an age without us, without cities, without firelight. Only raw earth and sky, the endless ocean, and the beings who embodied them. As you listen, there is no need to hold on tightly to every name or every detail. Let them drift around you like a soft breeze, like a gentle tide. Some may slip away as you rest, but the rhythm of the story will remain, guiding you deeper into stillness. We will divide our tale into 4 long parts. First, we will picture daily existence, or what little could be called daily existence in the age of the Titans. This is not daily life as we know it, for humans did not yet tread the soil. It was a realm of elemental forces, vast and strange. Then we will slowly move into the central tale, the rise and the fall of Cronus, the struggle that brought about the Titanomachy and the Olympians' ultimate triumph. After this, we will turn our gaze to the traces left in the world of men, mysterious fragments of ritual, altars to forgotten titans, glimpses into how they were once revered. Finally, we will join the gods of Olympus in their eternal banquets, contrasting endless divine feasting with the chaos and struggle of what came before. By the time we reach the conclusion, my hope is that you will feel soothed, perhaps already drifting into sleep, resting as the myths themselves flow into dreams. And so, with the gentle patience of a story meant to comfort rather than the rush, let us begin. Imagine yourself stepping softly into a world before our own. There are no roads beneath your feet, no villages waiting beyond the horizon, no hearth to guide you home. Instead, the air is thick with the scent of damp stone. The sky stretches endlessly overhead, and the earth beneath you feels both ancient and untamed. This is the time of the Titans. They were not human, nor even gods in the form that we picture. They were beings of overwhelming presence, vast in power, embodiments of the natural world itself. Oceanus was not simply a river god. He was the river that circled the entire world. Hyperion was not merely light. He was the blazing, endless brilliance of the sun. Rhea, soft yet immense, was the fertile earth herself. To speak of them is to speak of mountains, rivers, the soil, and the stars, given shape and voice. Now imagine trying to live in such a realm. There is no shelter you could build that would protect you. A Titan's shadow alone could stretch across valleys. Their footsteps would echo like thunder. The seas surged with no harbors to calm them. Storms rolled unhindered by walls, and the forests grew without boundary. Human life, fragile and brief, could not have survived in this mythic age. There was no bread, no plow, no gentle rhythm of sowing and harvest. The earth was raw, abundant but untamed, its fruits strange and unshaped by human hands. The air was alive with power, sometimes gentle, sometimes terrifying. Every gust of wind carried with it the breath of a divine being. The rhythm of life, if one can call it that, was cosmic. Night followed day, not because the sun rose in the east and set in the west as we see it now, but because Hyperion's light yielded to the cool embrace of Nyx, the primordial night. The seasons did not yet bear the soft names of spring, summer, autumn, or winter. Instead, the world shifted in moods, vast stretches of warmth, giving way to sudden torrents of rain or sudden freezes, without the predictability humans later came to depend on. Even time itself felt different. To the Titans, centuries were but moments, and moments could stretch into eternities. Where we measure life in decades, their reigns lasted for endless ages, whole epochs unfolding beneath their watchful gaze. And yet, for all its strangeness, there was beauty here. Imagine the sky at dusk, painted not by pollution or the reflection of cities, but by pure elemental light. Imagine rivers unbroken by bridges, mountains never carved by mining, valleys lush and unmarked by fields. It was a wildness beyond what we know today, a raw, unfiltered world. Still, for us, it would not have been survivable. There were no small comforts, no fire kindled to warm the night, no bread to share, no wool to wrap against the cold. The Titans themselves did not need such things. They were beyond hunger and thirst, beyond sleep. For them, existence itself was nourishment. For us, such a place would be overwhelming. Perhaps this is why the myths speak of humankind as arriving only later, shaped and guided once the Titans had given way to a new order. The Olympian gods, though powerful, were closer to us in their nature, capable of joy, anger, jealousy, and hunger. The Titans were too vast, too remote, too elemental for fragile humans to share the world with them. And so, in this first imagining, you find yourself standing in a world that is both breathtaking and impossible. You would not last a day among the Titans, and yet, through the gentle rhythm of storytelling, you may walk among them now in safety, exploring with your mind what your body could not endure. Let us rest here for a moment, picturing that ancient world, before we slowly turn toward the next chapter, the rise of Cronus and the fall of the Titans themselves. When we speak of the Titans, we often imagine them as eternal and unchanging. But even they were not free from the slow rhythms of rise and fall. Their story is one of succession, of children overtaking parents, of power yielding, sometimes unwillingly, to new generations. This pattern, echoed again and again in myth, found one of its earliest forms in the tale of Cronus, the Titan who rose against his father, and who in turn was destined to be overthrown by his own children. Let us step slowly into that tale. At the very beginning stood Uranus, the sky, who stretched endlessly above, and Gaia, the earth, who lay beneath, fertile and eternal. Together, they produced many children mighty beings, the Titans among them. But Uranus was uneasy with his offspring, for their strength was vast, and their presence filled him with fear. To control them, he forced some of them back into the depths of Gaia, pushing them into the dark womb of the earth. Imagine the weight of mountains pressing down, the endless silence beneath stone, and the frustration of beings too powerful to remain buried forever. Gaia, weary of this, longed for relief. The children she bore were not meant to be locked away. And so she devised a plan. She shaped a sickle of hard, unyielding stone, and she sought among her sons one who might be brave or ruthless enough to strike against their father. Cronus, the youngest but perhaps the most ambitious, stepped forward. Calmly, deliberately, he took the sickle from his mother, and when the moment came, he waited in silence for his father to descend. In that hushed moment, he struck. With that act, Uranus was overthrown, and the Titans, once pressed beneath the earth, were set free. Now, Cronus stood as leader among them. He did not simply claim the sky, nor the seas, nor the earth. Instead, he embodied the slow, inevitable passage of time. His rule was not a reign of fire or flood, but of cycles of things beginning and ending, of order imposed where once there was chaos. For a while, his leadership brought stability to the cosmos. The Titans reigned, and the universe, though vast and strange, settled into a pattern. Yet the myths remind us that power carries with it unease. Cronus had learned from his father that children could rise against their parents. And so, when Rhea, his sister and consort, bore him children, a shadow of dread crept over him. He feared that one of his offspring would one day take his throne, just as he had taken Uranus's. What could he do? In his anxiety, Cronus chose a path that was both cunning and cruel. Each time Rhea gave birth, he swallowed the child whole. Imagine, for a moment, the sorrow of the mother, watching one child after another disappear into the cavern of their father's body. Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon, all gone, consumed by fear of what they might become. Still, time, which Cronus himself represented, moves ever onward. Rhea, grieving yet determined, sought a way to preserve at least one of her children. When her youngest, Zeus, was born, she devised a plan. She handed Cronus a stone, wrapped in swaddling clothes, and with his habitual suspicion, he swallowed it without question. The infant Zeus, meanwhile, was hidden away in secret, raised in a cave on the island of Crete, nursed by nymphs and protected by guardians who clashed their shields together to cover the sound of his cries. As Zeus grew, so too did his strength. He was not raised in luxury or splendor, but in concealment and necessity. From this, he learned patience, resilience, and cunning. In time, he returned, no longer a child in hiding, but a god ready to claim his place. With the help of his mother, and aided by a potion prepared by the goddess Metis, Zeus caused Cronus to disgorge his swallowed children. One by one, they emerged: Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon, grown and strong, no longer infants, but ready to stand beside their brother. United, they formed a new order, the Olympians. What followed was no brief struggle, but a vast war that stretched across ages, the Titanomachi. For 10 years, the Titans, led by Cronus, clashed with the younger gods, led by Zeus. The earth shook with their battles, the seas boiled, and the sky was torn with fire. Titans hurled mountains. Gods answered with storms and thunderbolts. For mortals, had they existed then, such a sight would have been unimaginable. Yet even Titans were not invincible. The Olympians, younger, more agile, and aided by powerful allies, the one-eyed Cyclopes, who forged Zeus's thunderbolts, and the hundred-handed giants, whose strength was unparalleled, gradually gained the upper hand. At last, the Titans were defeated. One by one, they were cast down into Tartarus, the deepest, most shadowed pit beneath the earth, a place even darker and more remote than the underworld itself. There, behind walls of bronze and gates of unbreakable stone, they were bound in eternal exile. Not all Titans, however, met this fate. Some were spared. Oceanus, who had not taken part in the war, continued to circle the world as the endless river. Helios, the sun, still drove his chariot across the sky. Selene, the moon, still traced her pale arc in the night. These beings, though Titans, were woven so deeply into the fabric of the cosmos that they could not be cast away. And so the reign of the Titans ended, and the age of the Olympians began. It is a story not of sudden change, but of slow succession. Fathers overthrown by sons, time yielding to renewal, cycles repeating themselves. The myths teach us that no reign, no matter how mighty, lasts forever. Even the Titans, vast as they were, gave way to something new. As you let this tale settle, imagine the silence after that great war. Imagine the Titans, bound in shadow, their voices quieted, while above, the sky clears and a new order rises. Soon, we will turn from the clash of gods to the quieter echoes left in the world of men. The mystery of Titan worship, faint traces of ritual and reverence that remind us these mighty beings were never entirely forgotten. When we think of the Titans, we often imagine them as beings of the distant past, forgotten once the Olympians rose to power. Yet myth has a way of lingering. Even after their defeat and their descent into shadow, the Titans remain present in memory. They were too vast, too deeply tied to the natural world, to ever disappear completely. For the people of ancient Greece, whispers of the Titans continued, and in certain corners of the land, rituals and mysteries arose that seemed to honor them. Archaeology offers only fragments, faint clues scattered like pieces of a forgotten melody. Altars found in remote sanctuaries, inscriptions naming strange and half-remembered powers, fragments of hymns that speak not to Zeus or Apollo, but to older, more mysterious forces. These traces are delicate, but they remind us that even in the shadow of Olympus, the Titans were not entirely silenced. Imagine yourself walking through an ancient Greek sanctuary. At first glance, it might look familiar. A temple to a well-known Olympian, perhaps columns rising against the sky, a statue gleaming within. Yet step further, into the side chambers, or down into underground spaces carved beneath the earth, and you might find something different. Here, offerings of clay figurines, simple bowls, and rough-hewn altars suggest worship not of the sky gods, but of older powers. Some of these were associated with the Titans. One example comes from the city of Athens itself. On its slopes, beneath the grandeur of the Acropolis, there once stood a site known as the Titanician, thought to be dedicated to the memory of the Titans. The details are faint, but ancient sources suggest that Athenians made quiet offerings there, not in great public festivals, but in more private, subdued ceremonies. Why would people living in the age of Olympian dominance still turn their thoughts to the Titans? Perhaps it was because the Titans embodied forces too fundamental to ignore. The Olympians might preside over law, over music, over war, and wisdom. But the Titans represented the earth itself, the deep river, the sun's steady glow, the eternal cycle of day and night. To honor them was to acknowledge the raw, underlying powers that even Zeus himself could not erase. There are hints, too, that the Titans played a role in the great mystery religions. The Orphic traditions, mystical paths that promised deeper knowledge of life, death, and rebirth, often spoke of the Titans in their sacred poems. One version of the Orphic myth tells that the young god Dionysus was torn apart by the Titans, an act both violent and symbolic. From the ashes of that moment, humanity itself was said to have been born, carrying within us both the divine spark of Dionysus and the dark inheritance of the Titans. This strange, symbolic tale reveals much about how the Titans were remembered. They were not simply enemies defeated and forgotten. They were woven into the very fabric of human identity. To the followers of Orphism, to live was to carry within oneself a tension between light and shadow, between divine joy and titanic heaviness. Rituals, then, sought not only to honor the Olympians, but to reckon with the legacy of the Titans inside each soul. Archaeologists have uncovered objects that may connect to this hidden worship. Fragments of gold tablets, thin and delicate, inscribed with instructions for the soul in the afterlife. These tablets, found in graves, whisper of secret teachings. Some speak directly of the Titans, guiding the soul to avoid them or to acknowledge their role in the cycle of existence. The words are faint, often damaged, but their very survival suggests that belief in the Titans was not only mythic, it was spiritual, even practical, shaping how people prepared for death. Imagine now standing at the edge of a cave used for ritual. Torches flicker, their light playing against the stone walls. The air is cool, heavy with the scent of earth and smoke. A small group gathers, chanting words that have been passed down, perhaps altered, perhaps forgotten in part, but still carrying echoes of an ancient past. They pour libations, wine, oil, perhaps honey onto the stone floor. These offerings seep into the cracks, disappearing into the earth, as if feeding the unseen beings below. Such rituals were not the grand festivals of Olympia or Delphi. They were smaller, quieter, and in many ways more intimate. They spoke to fears that ran deep, the fear of time, of mortality, of powers too great to control. The Titans embodied those forces, and so they were approached with reverence, sometimes with caution. To honor them was not to celebrate them, but to acknowledge them, to keep balance with the hidden currents of the world. In this way, the Titans lived on in the human imagination, not as glorious rulers seated upon thrones, but as shadows beneath the surface of worship, remembered in whispers and in mysteries. The mystery of Titan worship reminds us that myths are not fixed. They shift and adapt, shaped by the people who tell them. The Titans may have been cast into Tartarus in the stories, but in ritual, they remain close, just beneath the earth, just behind the veil. And so, as you rest, imagine the quiet hum of an ancient hymn, low and steady, drifting through the cool air of a stone chamber. Imagine offerings laid gently upon an altar, the glow of torches dimming, the night outside stretching silent and still. The Titans, though bound and hidden, are not absent. They linger, patient and enduring, as old as the earth itself. When you are ready, we will leave the mystery of ritual behind and turn towards something lighter, the banquets of the Olympian gods. Feasts eternal, shining and serene, standing in contrast to the shadowed age of the Titans. With the fall of the Titans, a new order rose. The Olympian gods claimed their thrones upon the high mountain, and from there they looked down over the world of mortals and immortals alike. Unlike the Titans, who embodied raw elemental power, the Olympians shaped their reign around culture, order, and the pleasures of life. Nowhere is this more clearly seen than in the banquets they held, eternal feasts that contrasted with the chaos and struggle of the age before. Imagine, if you will, the summit of Mount Olympus. The air is clear, thinner than breath, yet filled with the fragrance of ambrosia, the divine food. The sky here does not darken as it does below. It glows in a constant golden light, soft and serene. Palaces shimmer with marble and precious stone, but without weight or harshness, more like visions than buildings. It is here that the gods gather, not for brief meals to stave off hunger, but for feasts without end, celebrations of their immortal nature. At the heart of these banquets was ambrosia and nectar. Unlike human food and drink, these divine substances did not simply nourish, they sustained immortality itself. To taste ambrosia was to remain unaging, unwearied. To sip nectar was to feel divinity flow through one's veins. For mortals, these were unattainable, but for the gods, they were the daily rhythm of life. Imagine the sweetness of nectar, flowing like honey yet lighter than water, leaving no thirst behind. Imagine ambrosia, delicate as dew, dissolving on the tongue like mist, yet filling the body with warmth and eternal vigor. The banquets were not silent. Music filled the air, soft and measured, played by the muses themselves, daughters of memory and inspiration. Their voices wove together in harmonies that spoke of the origins of the cosmos, the deeds of heroes, and the quiet beauty of nature. For the gods, these songs were not entertainment alone, but reminders of order, of the stories that bound their world together. Around the tables sat the Olympians, each with their own place and presence. Zeus, calm yet commanding, presided as king, his thunderbolt resting nearby but unused in the serenity of the feast. Beside him, Hera, his queen, her gaze steady, both proud and watchful. Across the hall, Apollo with his lyre in hand, the music of sunlight embodied. Artemis, cool and distant, preferring the forest below, yet present nonetheless. Athena, thoughtful, her eyes bright with wisdom. Dionysus, later welcomed among them, offering the wine that sparkled with laughter and loosened cares. Even the less gentle gods softened in this setting. Ares, usually fierce, sat in rare stillness, his restless spirit momentarily quieted by nectar. Poseidon, the roaring sea, spoke calmly, his voice like the low tide. Demeter, goddess of grain, shared the abundance of the harvest, not for survival, but as blessing. The banquet hall was a place where differences and quarrels faded, at least for a while, beneath the steady glow of eternal festivity. The contrast with the age of the Titans is striking. The Titans did not feast together. They were embodiments of forces too immense to gather around a single table. Their existence was solitary, vast, an impersonal mountain, ocean, time, and fire. The Olympians, by contrast, though powerful, were more human in shape and in spirit. Their banquets reflected this shift, from isolation to community, from raw struggle to shared order, from endless conflict to harmony, at least in appearance. For mortals, the image of these divine banquets was deeply comforting. Life in ancient Greece was marked by labor, by harvests dependent on weather, by wars, by disease. To imagine that above all this, on a shining mountain, the gods themselves sat together in eternal peace, eating foods beyond corruption, was to glimpse a kind of perfection. In their feasts, mortals saw not only what was divine, but what they themselves longed for: security, plenty, and fellowship. There were times, too, when the boundary between mortal and divine blurred. Myths tell of rare occasions when a human was invited to join the feast, usually as a reward or a sign of favor. Heroes like Heracles, after their trials, were welcomed among the gods, seated at the eternal banquet table. For those chosen few, to eat ambrosia was not just to be honored, but to transcend mortality itself. Of course, even in these serene gatherings, small tensions lingered. The gods were not free from rivalry or jealousy, but the banquet itself stood as a symbol of their unity, a ritual of harmony that contrasted with their struggles elsewhere. In the hall of feasting, time slowed, quarrels softened, and the glow of immortality reminded them of their shared eternity. As you picture this scene, let it unfold slowly. The soft music of the lyre, the gentle laughter of gods at ease, the endless flow of nectar poured into golden cups. Imagine the light reflecting from polished stone, from garments woven not of wool but of starlight, from crowns that shimmer like dew at dawn. The sound of conversation is steady, low, and soothing, not hurried or sharp. Nothing here presses forward with urgency. All is calm, timeless, unchanging. The Olympians' banquets remind us of the shift from the Titans' raw chaos to the gods' cultivated order. Where once the world was too wild for human presence, now it was a place where humans could imagine themselves in relationship with the divine, offering sacrifices, receiving blessings, and one day, perhaps, being remembered at a table beyond the mortal span. And so, the story of the Titans and their successors comes full circle. From elemental forces to eternal feasts, from struggle to serenity, from shadows to light. As we prepare to close this long journey, let us linger for a moment in the glow of Olympus, before gently stepping back into our own world, carrying with us a sense of calm and a deeper appreciation of the myths that shaped the ancient mind. And so, their long journey through the age of the Titans and the rise of the Olympians draws gently to a close. We began in a time before time, when the Titans reigned and the world was too vast, too raw, and too unshaped for human life. We stood in awe before their presence, imagining rivers that circled the world, mountains that rose without end, and the endless sky that stretched above. In that imagining, we saw a realm where we could not last a single day, and yet, through the safety of story, we wandered unharmed. From there, we followed Cronus. We watched as he rose against Uranus, sickle in hand, striking a father who had pressed his children into the depths. We saw him swallow his own offspring in fear of being overthrown, only to be undone by the youngest of them, Zeus, hidden away in a Cretan cave. In time, the children returned fully grown, And together with Zeus, they brought about the Titanomachy, the long war that ended with the Titans bound in Tartarus, and the Olympians ascending to rule the sky. Yet even then, the Titans were not forgotten. We trace the faint echoes of their memory, found in rituals whispered in caves and altars tucked away in the corners of cities, in the verses of Orphic hymns. We listen to the mysteries that spoke of their part in the creation of humankind, of the weight they left in each soul, and of how people honored them in secrecy and in reverence. These shadows reminded us that the Titans, though defeated, were not erased. They remained part of the story, part of the earth, part of the human imagination. And finally, we stepped into the halls of Olympus, where the gods feasted in eternal banquets. There we saw ambrosia and nectar sustaining immortality, the muses singing in endless harmonies, and the Olympians gathered in fellowship, serene and unhurried. We felt the contrast between the wild struggle of the Titans and the ordered celebration of the Olympians. Where once there was chaos, now there was music, laughter, and harmony, though never without the faint undercurrent of rivalry. Through these 4 stages, the tale unfolded slowly, like waves rolling onto a shore, steady and unceasing. From elemental chaos to eternal feasts, from vast shadows to golden light, the myths carried us on a journey that was both ancient and timeless. Now, as we leave Olympus behind, we return quietly to ourselves. We remember that these stories were not meant only to entertain, but to explain, to comfort, and to connect. For the people of ancient Greece, myths were a way to understand the rhythms of the world, the rising sun, the turning seasons, the slow passage of time, and the ever-present knowledge that power rises and falls, yet life continues. Perhaps, as you rest now, you can feel those same rhythms. The steady breath in and out, the slow beat of your heart, the soft passage of moments. Just as the Titans once gave way to the Olympians, wakefulness gives way to rest, and rest gives way to sleep. The cycles continue, gentle and inevitable. In the quiet of night, the myths become like dreams. You may imagine yourself walking once more through the forests of that primordial world, or standing in the shimmering halls of Olympus, or lingering at a hidden shrine where the Titans were once honored. You may imagine the taste of ambrosia, light and sweet upon the tongue, or the cool shadows of Tartarus where ancient voices still echo. Or perhaps you let these images drift away, like leaves upon a stream, no longer holding them, simply allowing them to carry you further into calm. Remember, too, the lesson that lies beneath these tales, that nothing lasts forever. Even the greatest powers, even the vast Titans, gave way to something new. And yet, in their passing, they were not lost. They remained reshaped, remembered, lingering in memory and in ritual. In the same way, our waking thoughts may fade into dreams, but they do not vanish. They transform into something softer, more distant, more peaceful. Now, allow yourself to rest. The story is complete, the journey finished. There is no need to hold on to every detail, every name, every moment. Let them fade as they will. The important thing remains, a sense of calm, of order, of timelessness. The myths have carried you through ages beyond reckoning, and now they release you gently back into the quiet of your own night. As you drift, imagine the distant glow of Olympus fading into starlight. Imagine the deep earth beneath you, ancient and steady, holding you as Gaia once held her children. Imagine the slow, endless rhythm of time itself, Cronus's domain flowing gently forward, not as a burden, but as a soft current carrying you into rest. The Titans have spoken, the Olympians have feasted, and now all is still. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and let the myths become part of your dreams. The world of the ancient gods is far away, but your own quiet world is here, waiting, safe and steady. Good night, and may your sleep be as calm and enduring as the myths themselves.